Yo, welcome to Radio Melee. We got finally fucking somebody knows what the fuck they're doing. Jesus Christ, we bring all these fucking Smash players on every week, and it's just, what do I do? How do I talk to people? Finally, we got a professional podcaster on. We're trying to learn from one of the greatest to do it. But of course, we're not here to talk about podcasting. We're talking about Smash tournaments and how Aiden just accidentally ran the fucking best and most stacked tournament of all time. No, it wasn't Ludwig. It was Aiden. What's up, Aiden? And how you doing?
What's going on? It's going good. I appreciate the acknowledgement. It wasn't Ludwig. No, he's like the executive producer. He comes and kills it on from the entertainment aspect, and that's his job. And then I get to do all the things that I like, which is the logistics stuff.
Which would make you more of the director. Dude, people say the word producer and I don't know what it means. I figure this is my chance to learn.
Producer is like kind of fitting. Usually you're the person like organizing like the broadcast portion of it. That's like what the producer is. It's like when Slime was like a producer at Summit, he was the person like in the production room, like watching the stream the whole time, taking notes, telling like, let's go to this camera, let's go to this shot, stuff like that. That is like a very like producer sort of role. And while I did share some of that responsibility for this event, you could just call me like the tournament director or the tournament organizer. I think that's probably most appropriate.
Tournament organizer. We love we love that term in Smash anyway. There was a funny moment, Aiden, where it was like Friday and like Ludwig was on the mic and we were like, okay, or actually I guess it was early Saturday. Or no, maybe it was Friday, but we were trying to figure out how Swiss was gonna work. And Ludwig was like, so Swiss wait, shit, how many matches do they play? And of all people, Mango comes over and explains the format to us. And we were like,
really funny.
Yeah, Mango was like, yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. It was a little bit, it was like, okay, well, I couldn't have seen Mango doing that a couple years ago. So that's growth.
That means they read the document. That means they read the stuff that got sent them. So that's a good sign. That's a small victory in my mind.
That's really funny. PP, what is up? As always, I obviously you weren't at the LSI this weekend. And fucking side note, LSI is the sickest. I've just been calling it LSI because I think the abbreviation just rolls off the tongue so nice. Like Ludwig was even saying on comms, he was like, dude, did I shit the bed with the name? Is Ludwig Smash Invitational? Is it kind of? And I was like, yeah, but LSI sounds great. So you just say LSI, and I was like, yeah, that's true. So I assume you were watching.
Yes.
Awesome.
I felt I remember Aiden, you were talking about, I looked at your Twitter some and you were saying, I hope that this 4-stream side stream is something that, we hope that you might inspire more TOs in the future. And I thought that was a cool idea, but I'll also say I felt like I OD'd on Melee because I felt like I wasn't ADHD brained enough to watch 4 sets, or if there was a stock on, I'm like, oh, do I have to watch this one or this one? And then they're coming back, and I was it was a real struggle for me. And then because the YouTube player can be a little smaller, and then there are small streams in there, I was like, oh, I'm trying to see these. I don't know. I'm 32, man. It was an interesting experience, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was a cool idea, but so it's interesting.
What I love about you saying that, PP, is like, this is how I know you don't watch Melee at the degree of detail that I watch Melee. Because I feel like when I watch Melee, I can see 4 streams and I'll just my eyes will glaze over and I'll be like, oh, Falco, oh, Kevin Falcon. And I feel like you're watching and you're like, PPMD mode engaged, and you're just fucking digesting everything that's happening in 4 matches at once, and you just have things to say about the neutral or whatever in every single match simultaneously.
I'm gonna need some extra mouth to talk about all of them, but I don't want it to be a detraction, obviously, because I think it's a cool idea.
No, it's an amazing idea. It's the best idea.
And I'm curious, how you came up with it, if there were any logistical challenges, and if you think it's feasible for other TOs to do this too.
Yeah, absolutely. So it has a bit of an origin story, honestly. There is, I'm looking up his Twitter right now. So there is a broadcast engineer in Washington named Lewis who worked on a project that he just called the Quad back in 2016. And basically that was a PC setup. It was on a cart. It had 4 Blackmagic capture cards set onto it. And then he I believe, lent the equipment to Mike Lau in Washington, and Mike Lau started producing the quad stream at Tuck House events in Washington, and that carried over into using it at Dome Park in the Grass. And for anybody who was watching that tournament at the time, you probably recall that on Saturday of that event, our main stream for Melee just went down, and the computer crashed, and we couldn't get anything to work. And the secondary stream at that tournament was the quad on the Tuck House stream. And all of the viewership from the mainstream, this is back in 2016 when like the mainstream would be on a day one would be like pretty high, right? We had like 10, 15K people watching the Tuck House quad because it was the only way to watch matches on day one. And that is like where the quad like origin story began. It's like basically this project that Lewis worked on. If you want to see his it's a G Baka Bang, GBAKABENG. But basically made the first iteration of the quad that was like highlighted by Tuck House because they continued to use that setup at all of the Tuck House weeklies, like going through 2017. And then I think Lewis ended up moving, and I think they like lost the equipment. But that was like an exciting era in like Washington Weekly Melee, where they literally their weekly would take advantage of the quad stream every week, and that was kind of the origin story. So this is an old idea, and it was like fabled at the time. I would say like it was one of the best things about that event, where a lot of people were complaining on day one. It's like, well, the stream went down, and then everybody was like, actually, this shit is crazy. Like the quad is dope. I'm so happy like I found this side stream because the main stream went down, and some incredible matches were happening at the time. Like some highlights of the quad was like it was Triff's first tournament in the US. It was one of Spud's first tournaments in the US. Like watching like Triff go like last hit game 5 for 9th with Pew Pew U at the time was like crazy because nobody knew who Triff was, and Spud like beat Mike Hayes. Nobody knew who Spud was at the time, and he got like 17th at this massive tournament. And so a lot of like international players had these like one amazing set was like SFAT versus Adam from the Netherlands. That all these like crazy like international sets of players that have never really been highlighted before like appeared on that quad for the first time. And then I would say the idea kind of went away for a few years. I think Vro busted it out once on like Vro and Juna did it for like a Melee Everyday event in Chicago in like 2017 or 2018. But then we wouldn't really see it again until I think we ran Don't Park again at the end of 2018. And we brought the quad back for Melee. And then we did sort of like a red zone style quad for Ultimate at that tournament, where there were 4 setups being recorded for Ultimate, but it had like traditional casting, and then it would cut between matches. So like as soon as one set ended, we would just cut into the next match because one was already in progress. And we tried doing that out. And that was really well received as well, because it's like a different type of broadcast experience where I think like people want to see back-to-back matches with like no downtime, and we didn't have any ad requirements at that event. And it could be like casted in a more cohesive way than like a quad, like a raw quad could be. And I think both of those broadcast experiences are grabbing for something different. Like different types of audiences will appreciate each of those types of streams differently, because I think they accomplish different things. So when people like, it was really funny to me seeing people be like, oh, why does nobody do this? Like, this is crazy. Where did this idea come from? Because it happened. I did this like 7 years ago. Like Mike Lau and Lewis did this 7 years ago. And it's been around all that time. I think just back then we sort of like lacked the platform for the idea to like really catch on and gain the attention that it did for this tournament. But that's where that came from. And the reason, I think one more instance I want to bring up was at Battle of BC this year. Dylan Cook, whose tag is like Tizzy. I still don't know how to say your tag, Dylan. I'm sorry. Tizzy. Ran the quad at Battle of BC this year, and then Dylan was the one who hit me up because they were like, we should run the quad. We should run the quad at the Ludwig event, and I was like, you are right, because a problem me and Slime have been talking about is like, we'll have all these incredible matches in such a short period of time. Currently, we don't have a good way to capture everything. And that seems to like fail the spirit of the event in a way. It's like, why invest all this time, money, and energy into bringing all these players out, and then not have most of the sets be possible to even watch because it's closed attendance, so you don't even have that like aspect of like in-person spectating for those people that are there. And the quad was like the perfect solution for that. It's like, let's capture and showcase every single match over the course of the main event, and we can accomplish it through the quad. So Dylan shot me the idea on Facebook Messenger, which I'm still somehow checking in 2022, and I was like, yeah, let's get this together. And then I started talking with Juna, and then they got the quad together for Ultimate and Melee. So that's how it came together for this event.
That's so cow. Sick. That is a very thorough response.
I assumed it was from, I assumed it was your idea straight up. Like, I assumed you were just like, we got to bring it back. Don't park. Let's fucking go, baby. But that is sick. I just, by the way, as you were detailing that, I went to G-Baka-Bang Twitter, Lewis, right? Lewis's Twitter. And Lewis was posting apparently a couple days ago. I just saw a tweet. Warms my heart seeing the tech not only still being used, but everyone enjoying it. I'll be coming out of quote unquote retirement soon to help more folks with different quad concepts, along with 2 quad setups on standby. So that's fucking dope. I need to go back. I want to, later when I stream, probably even later today, but maybe even throughout the week, I'm probably just going to go back because I missed a lot of these sets. Obviously, commentating the mainstream, and then just you can't watch 4 sets at once in person. If you're in person, you just can't. So I need to go back and catch up on some of the Melee I missed because, I know I missed most of J-Mook versus Wizro, for example.
I was literally about to say, if there's one set to go watch J-Mook Wizzy. Dude, it was so sick.
Fuck, dude. And I gotta say, because you're right, you can't really have an in-person crowd at this sort of. I mean, you can have some semblance of a crowd, but the crowd this weekend, the biggest crowd that I saw was there were 25 people gathered for J-Mook Wizzy, which was a third of the venue. A third, but you know what I mean? It was a big crowd for what it was. I was like, oh shit, why are all those people standing over there? I gotta check that out. But yeah, I mean, and I want to emphasize, since we are pretty much, we got you on, when we do Radio Melee, we like to bring people on that, maybe they just won something, or in your case, they fucking just, well, yeah, you did win something. You fucking won fucking TO of the year with this shit. Or you did something. And so anything, I assume you don't get to talk about nerdy TO shit on, for example, the yard probably much.
Yeah, less so.
So if there's any of that, that you want to just, it's here's some crazy shit I was thinking about. Just feel free to just fucking go off with it because that's kind of what we're here for. And we're going to be bringing callers in a bit to ask about all kinds of things Super Smash Bros. Melee, related. And to all of those of you watching on Twitch, if you want to talk to Aiden, and by the way, thank you for the Prime. I love Morton. If you want to talk to Aiden and us, you can use !Radio Melee, and you basically can just hop in our Discord server. It is that easy, and you can literally just ask us whatever you want. If it's not a really dog shit question, we will talk to you live on air. We will literally bring you on, and we'll just talk to you. And hopefully there aren't any weirdo yard fangirls that really love Aiden that take advantage of this.
Yeah, not a lot of women watching our show.
Okay. Fair.
Good luck with that. And to direct TO stuff a little bit. I mean, I think your story about this quad stream was really interesting, and it kind of got me thinking, is there some other TO sorcery? Is there some other technology, some other trick, anything like that that's out there that's known about maybe, but just isn't being utilized right now that could maybe really enhance the experience in the same sort of way?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a few staple things that are I think pretty easy to implement, relatively. For starters, I think best of 5, just deeper best of 5 is just really easy to do and everybody wants it. I think there's been this kind of weird status quo of doing it at top 32 to top 64. It's gradually moved over the years, but not to I'll just go to my own event again. It's in I think in 2016, Don't Park had top 96 best of 5, and in 2018 we had top 128 best of 5. So
I just want to ask real quick because I'm concerned. I think the argument that I'd always heard from TOs was that it just takes too long. So I'd love for you to tell us why that's not true.
as long as
this is like word of bond right now. Like this is a TO saying best of 5 is easy.
Right. So I just want to understand.
This is the moment. This is the moment that we can link to. Leffen, bookmark this.
as long as you have enough setups, like it's not really a time constraint. Like the same 2-hour blocks that you run your tournaments in normally, if as long as you like plan ahead enough and organize enough setups, which I think is like maybe not as challenging as like people make it out to be, or at least like at every modern major, we certainly have enough setups now where like there's plenty. I think people complained about lack of setups at early majors for so long that like in the past couple years, number of setups at tournaments has not really been the constraint anymore, because that is the one constraint is like if you don't have enough setups, best of 5 is a problem. But in these like traditional 2-hour blocks, like more best of 5, I'm pretty confident you can safely run a tournament, even that like a super major, like all best of 5 if you like.
Wow.
If you want to. It's just, I think it's just something you have to think about a little more. And from my perspective, like most TOs are people that have done it for a long time, and I think it's hard to maintain a fire of like innovation because it takes a lot of like time and effort to like think of new ideas and then go through the work of implementing it, because you already have the static workload of like hosting the tournament itself, which is very large. And that's often off the back of your main job that you have, because almost nobody is doing this full time.
Right.
And you have to like find the time and the motivation to like break the status quo, when it's sort of like you can take the mold of every other major or like the previous year you ran the tournament and just do the same thing again and do the same amount of work or do less work because you figured out the stuff last time. And that's good enough because people have a baseline experience in their mind that they're generally seeking. And if you're meeting that expectation, then there's not really a reason to push past that. But then eventually, after the status quo has like been in place for so long, some people start questioning and challenging it. Leffen is particularly good at this, I would say. Perhaps his timing could use some work, and we have, as has been recently demonstrated. But I think overall, I think Leffen and Armada and like, you know, other top players who eventually question like, why are things done this way? They could be better, are the primary motivation behind like one of the reasons why I like made decisions like I did for like past tournaments in this one is because I have my own experience as like a TO and a player, but I also have community feedback, and I know that players want this thing, and it's like, okay, well, what can we do to work and implement that?
Right.
And best of 5 is what I think is a really basic one with like the amount of time it takes to gather setups, which is to me the only real constraint. I think the other thing you do have to account for like a little bit is that super majors, you might be running so many events. And you kind of have to deal with the scheduling challenge as well. Whereas like when people start entering a lot of events and like they bleed into waves and like you have that constraint of like, if I'm, you know what Mutaking used to do where he'd like enter singles and doubles in like 3 different fucking games. And like people like him exist, and it only takes a few of them to like fuck up a lot. And, so I think you can fix that by like capping the number of events people can enter at super majors, which I think is like totally appropriate. But that's like one of the other things that influences that in my mind. But yeah, best of 5 is like an example of like a change that is like, I think easily made, if not for a whole tournament, which could be maybe like an entire tournament could be more challenging than like doing more than top 64. Like I think moving the best of 5 to like from top 64 to top 128 or top 256 is like a really easy thing to do. It's literally just saying yes in my mind. Like it's literally just saying yes, let's make it best of 5.
Because I guess mathematically, all that you really like what really slows the bracket down is if there's like, hey, we are 2 people who want to start our tourney set. Oh, well, we can't because all the setups are being used, and then you have to wait. But if there are enough setups that everyone can play concurrently, it doesn't matter if if each individual tourney set goes an extra 2 minutes because it's best of 5 instead of best of 3 on average.
Yeah.
Because
it's why scheduling at this tournament was so smooth, is because we had the quad to dump to. So any time that we were falling behind, and it was like in a normal tournament scenario, like at Summit you have every set streamed and it all goes on one broadcast, right? And there are different unrelated reasons to this conversation why that's the case. It's like a different type of like broadcast product. But when one set drags, if I have one 45-minute set, I still need to do all the same number of sets that I had to do before, right? But at this tournament, it was like, okay, well, T Sonics just took a fucking hour. Let's just dump an extra set to the quad stream, and then we've cut down a set on the main stream, so the schedule just runs at the same time that it would have anyway. And those are like, as long as you don't have fixed set requirements for your stream, then like then the only limiting factor is setups, because as long as somebody can sit down at any setup and play, that's like then the tournament continues to move forward.
It just continue, right? You're not blocked on it. You know what it is? It's pipelining. It's when you fucking put your clothes in laundry, and then you go wash the dishes. You know what I mean? As long as you're doing two things at once, you're good.
Exactly. You don't need to wait for the dishwasher to finish to go put your clothes in the laundry.
This is the smartest shit I've ever heard. You're the smartest person I've ever talked to. I studied computer science for fucking 5 years at the University of Washington to finally understand what you literally just summarized in 5 minutes.
If we start talking about C++, though, I definitely lose that fight. So don't worry about it.
What was it, dude? What was your major? If just because I know we're both UW, so I'm just curious.
Finance, the Foster School of Business. Yeah.
Oh hell yeah, yeah, I know where that is.
Yeah,
dude. There's also something else, and we're gonna get in the community voice soon, answering the question that was posed last week. But before that, I wanted to dig into one more thing that you said, which I thought was interesting, because you mentioned how a lot of TOs have just been doing it for a long time, and you know, when you've been doing fucking anything for like long enough, you kind of get to a point where you're like, you know, not that you lose some passion for it, but like it feels more routine or whatever, right? So for you, obviously, you kind of spent a bunch of years where you were TOing as you know, as like a pretty hardcore thing, and then obviously you went to Mogul Moves, and then you were kind of, to my understanding, Mogul Merch, and you were and you had I think you pretty much wrote a tweet longer that was saying, you know, events aren't going to be my thing anymore for a while, and you know, and then you moved on to that chapter, and then you're coming back and you're running, and obviously you're doing more events now. It's not just, it seems like you're doing more events outside of this, obviously,
and it seems like you're enjoying it.
And then, you know, you take Lud, who I would say, even just looking at like Ludwig, I feel like his focus is a little bit more on these grander scale, like the chess boxing thing, these grander events, you know, that are fewer and further between than, let's say, planning the content for his stream every single day. So for you, coming back to this, do you feel like a sense of invigoration or a renewed energy, or like, what does that feel like coming back to something that you used to do as at least your main focus in the Smash community?
It's an interesting question. I think I've sort of been grappling with that, and I don't know what my answer exactly is, because I think on the whole I have stayed pretty consistent. Like, I haven't worked on many events, and if you read that tweet longer, I say like the exception to this will be like when Ludwig asks me to do something, I will do it.
That's true. That is true.
And because that's part of my job description at Mogul Moves, and I think a big change with that was just like, let's pick a job where I get to work with my friends and is just fixes other aspects of my life. Like, that's why I took the job with Ludwig. It was like before the yard, and it was basically like, let's raise these aspects of my quality of life, like outside of my career aspirations, and I will continue to run events as Ludwig pleases, which is like at whatever cadence he decides, basically. But I just like wanted to get away from like esports being like my main track in like career, because I think I was frustrated by a lot of aspects of it, which I think I still am. Like, I still am jaded about esports. Like, it's but it was like really refreshing to come into this event and like work. There was a few days in the 2 weeks coming up to this where I think I recaptured sort of like my love for working really hard on something. Like, I have this sort of like rose tinted nostalgia for the days leading up to particularly Don't Park in the Grass, where like I would work like just for what felt like days straight, like staying up really late and working on like every aspect of the event, like primarily by myself, and like sort of indulging in that, even though it was extremely like stressful, and creating almost this sort of like runner's high equivalent, but through like working on something. And I feel like I haven't felt that way about anything in a long time. So it was like nice to feel that way about this. However, I think like the overall like stresses and like frustrations, it like definitely dissuades me from doing this like frequently. And I also it, like I said, it continues to be at like whatever the cadence Ludwig asks for. So if Ludwig wants to do this again, we'll do it again, and I'll enjoy working on it. But the amount of like work I want to do outside of that, I think I fluctuate heavily on. Like right now, I think I'm in this little like high period, like I was after main stage, where after main stage it was a little different. I felt like I had failed after main stage because I knew I had like not done a very good job, and I think main stage was like very held up by the fact that at Summit I have so many people to like rely on to do things. There's basically like where I don't put effort in, there's another person at Summit who like sort of picks up the pieces and puts in the work. Whereas like in this situation, Mogul Moves is like a smaller company. We don't have as much like structure, and a lot of like effort and like output when it comes to this event like just falls to me. If I don't do it, it will not get done. And I think that sort of pressure creates, like pressure makes diamonds kind of deal. It's like I think when my back is against the wall and I feel like shit, that's kind of like when I do some of my better work. And in main stage's case, it's like the pressure like wasn't as there because other people could step in and do something. And after main stage was over, I was like happy, but I was also like sad because I knew I had not put in enough effort, and it made me feel like I should get back in it and like prove to myself that I could still fucking do this. And I feel that way after this event in a similar way where it's like, damn, we like broke a lot of like new ground here, and this event was impressive in X ways, and I could like keep going and keep doing that. But I think the problem is I know enough about myself is like I don't really think I'll feel like that in 2 weeks. I think I'll go back to like skeptical Amen and like what is it really all worth, and like why would I do that? Because I not to be like negative or something, because I think I'm proud of this event, but I think I really wrestle with thoughts of like, why put all the time and effort into something like this when I don't think it matters that much to me anymore? Like it doesn't. Like I think I tweeted this like under a thread with like I was talking to Contra on Twitter about this because me and Connor have known each other a long time. He was like the main TO in Oregon, and I was like the main TO in Washington, and we were coming up at the same time. So we've always like had a deep bond over like Endgame TV and all the tournaments we worked on together. And I got really like honest with him in a thread where like I don't think I will ever care about anything as much as I did Don't Park on the Grass, because it was like proving to myself that I could do something I'd never done before, and that was kind of like my mountaintop. And this type of event, it's like it's not that it's easy, but it feels there's no reward in the same way. It's like dude, when you don't have like a budget and you just like have a bunch of money and like all you have to do is like put together a Smash tournament, it's like part of me feels like it's like, what do I have to be proud of? It's like I just wielded the coin like all strongly enough.
We'll tell Ludwig to make it harder for you. Don't worry.
But I am serious. Like back then, I think the reward was in the fact that like it's me. I've never done this. I'm 19. I'm working with 3 other people who are 18 and 19, and it's like we've never done something like this before, and we have no money, and we made a sick fucking tournament. I don't know. It's like I don't know the like crossroads of circumstance that will ever create that like feeling again. And like this tournament doesn't capture that anymore, because it's just like I'm proud. This is an awesome tournament. I'm glad everybody had a good time. I want to make something that people enjoy, but it doesn't match like the internal like motivation is not there in the same way. And I don't know how to like get that back.
I would wager that a lot of, let's say, top players would actually deeply resonate with what you just said. I mean, we've got one top player right here. We've got PP, who definitely rose to the top, and then had to. Obviously, once you rise to the top, you can only defend it.
Yeah,
and even myself, right? Like, I think as a commentator, I was, as you were saying what you were saying, I was kind of thinking back to how I felt the first time I did, for example, an Evo top 8 with Bobby, and how I have continued to feel over the years. And like, let me tell you, that's some of the truest shit. And I don't really know why, but it is,
there's something to chase, right? I think it's like you're hungry, and so much of your motivation when you're starting out is like proving things to yourself, proving things to other people. I've always described TOing as like a very egotistical experience for me, where it's like I think at its core, I don't think I ever did it for the community. I certainly didn't do it for anybody but myself, and I just wanted to create the tournaments that I thought were the coolest and show everybody it's like this is what shit could be like if you tried. Like that's what I felt inside. And it's like almost like this anger, like this burning like desire to like create something that I was personally proud of. And I think a lot of that I felt when I was like 19 to 21, and like a lot of that is just gone now. Like it's just I in good ways too. It's like ego is like a harmful thing in a lot of like ways in your life, and I think like getting rid of my ego over time is like ultimately beneficial in like my personal life and in like most of my career. But in this situation, I think it takes away some of the spark that like gets you to chase something.
Yeah, I fully agree with that and have had that, I think, exact arc myself. And yeah, it's fucked because you in some ways, like you said, it's healthier in the sense that you're more zoomed out. You kind of are able to take this kind of longer view and go, you know what, there's more to life than just this one fucking thing that I used to beat my head in the wall about.
Yeah.
But I do think that to some degree, everyone who gets really good at something or gets really passionate about something, I think you almost have to have that sense of ego about it when you're on the come up, because like, I think if you, like you said, doing it for the community versus doing it for yourself, I've always said that you need to have intrinsic motivation to a certain degree to be good at anything. Because if you say to yourself, even let's say you're a musician, I think if you say, I want to make music for all the people that'll enjoy it, I think you can't start like that. You need to start by making the fucking best music that you think you can make. Otherwise, you'll never be great at it.
I think it's why I look back on this a lot. I think it's why I never successfully ran a weekly. Like at peak, I like attempted to run a weekly like twice, and at best I did it 2 weeks in a row. And I think it's because weekly, like primary motivation for hosting weeklies is like, or even monthlies is like about creating community spaces and about giving people like this fun environment to go just like partake in. And that's really fucking important. Like it's one of the bedrocks of like not only Smash, but just communities in general, right? Having a space to like congregate and sort of like be your church, if you will. Like, and I love participating in that as like a player. I think that's really cool. But I think as a TO, your motivation for that needs to be very like giving and selfless, and like you do it to create that experience and give that to everybody else. And I honestly don't know if I ever had that in me, because like I basically failed. It's like the logistical challenge of running a weekly is not really there. Like it's a pretty easy thing to run. And and that's all I think my brain really like cared about. And not that and that's not to ignore that like, compliments or like things about like having a good time like didn't matter to me. Like if everybody left my tournament and said it was shit, like that would hurt me really badly. But for like it's not literally just about myself, but I think like that motivation like for running a weekly is much more selfless than like seeking out like bigger and bigger tournaments. I think that's why I was never good at that. Like I actually think a lot, because Owen, who was like the president of UW Smash for a long time. Owen and I think I got into school like during like Owen's like third year, I want to say. And I think Owen, when I initially came to UW, had this idea that I would kind of like pick up the mantle of the club. But I think our ideals like really diverged, where like Owen was very, very set on the community building. He cared about the UW like club events, like providing variety, creating a space that was friendly for people to show up in. And that's what their team was about. And like going out to dinner after and doing all those great things that are really, really important for a local community. But I didn't really care. I wanted to run like bigger regionals that like we flew in people for, and we got like BC down and we got Oregon up for, and like create the biggest like spectacle and something special in that way. And like that sort of ideal set is not what builds a club. And that's why I was never like an officer of the Smash Club. I wasn't really involved in it. And that's I think those are kind of like the two crossroads, or like the two tracks in TOing that are really interesting to like reflect on. And I think Owen was a really good example of somebody who gave a shit about like the local community and dumping all his time and effort into creating that space that was so friendly and inviting for everybody in Seattle. But like my aspirations were always like disconnected from that, and I wanted different things.
And it's Owen. Bring up Owen is, obviously this is more meaningful to me than it is to UP, because I actually have a face to the name. But yeah, that is a really valid comparison. I actually wonder, like how you feel about. So, for example, right, like back when me and Scar did the Scar and Toe show every week.
Yeah.
And we would talk to when we first got off the ground. I'll never forget. We asked Mike Ross, who was at Twitch at the time, kind of what the key was to like a successful show like that, because he had Capcom Pro Talk that he would do every week.
Yeah.
And he basically said, at the end of the day, it's consistency, because you got that fire right now. And you've got that fire and you're building this thing and you want to get it off the ground, but then you got to show up every week. And maybe there's nothing left to innovate at a certain point. You're just showing up. I think this is the 59th episode of Radio Melee. So we've been doing this, every week for over a year at this point. And, me and Scar did the Scar Toph show for a couple of years, and the reason. And, for you, I wonder how it is. Obviously you're doing the yard right now and you record every week.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's episodes where you guys, you're in Italy this week, or you've traveled somewhere and you're doing this new thing. But, is that something that you're that you think about from time to time, like the balance between just doing the damn thing every week versus innovating and having that fire or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, is that still something you kind of wrestle with sometimes?
I think about the phrase like discipline is more important than motivation a lot. Like I think about that in like a general sense, but I think the yard is nice because I think it's this project, or like a podcast is something I never really like aspired to work on, but is probably one of the first things that I've done where everything to do with it, almost everything to do with it, is just fun. Like that's why it's like not hard, and there's like no. I don't even think about like the discipline aspect of it, because every week that we sit down to record is like just a fucking good time. Like it makes me so happy that I get to go sit down and talk to some of my best friends in the world and like create something that like people just happen to enjoy. But it's like, the conversations that are happening like in our attic when we record are like not very different from the conversations that we had when we're just, the four of us hanging out in the kitchen. So
right.
That's really nice. Like I consider myself extremely lucky that is like a pillar of my life now. And not once have I considered going up there to record like episodes like work. It's just like, there is like a cognizance to it. Like in a sense, it's like I review episodes. I like critique myself. I want to do better. Like there are aspects of it that like are important to evaluate, but at its core, it's like I am only happy to be involved in that thing, and it's one of the like least stressful, fun activities that I could consider work ever. And so that equation of like the motivation versus discipline never comes in, because it's just like, I don't really need to think about like motivation to like go talk to Slime, Ludwig, and Nick for a couple hours. Like,
right. You would do it anyway.
Yeah, that's what we do anyway.
That makes sense. I guess in that sense, I guess it's just not going to be ever, like let's say TOing, where TOing is at the end of the day just a lot of fucking work.
Yes. And that's like why I think I stepped away from BTS is like, I kind of realized that like I wanted to work in esports for so long, like literally since I was 16, before I got into Smash. Like I went to like league. I went to a League of Legends event, and that's why I wanted to work in esports. Like,
shit.
So this like, I went to MLG Anaheim 2013. So the year before it had Melee. Wow. And I was there, and it was my first esports event. I followed like League and Call of Duty at the time. And I was like, this is fucking awesome. I didn't even think this could really be a job. This is what I want to do. And then I happened to get into Melee like 4 months later, and never really pieced together that like Melee would be my track to getting involved in this. Melee was like this thing that was happening concurrently to my interest in esports. And then not until college did I really realize that like, oh, these are kind of one and the same actually. Like I just started TOing Melee tournaments because I wanted to play in Melee tournaments. Like that's why I started doing it. It has nothing to do with my career aspirations, at least at the time. And I just think I feel like I kind of lost my train of thought.
All good.
But why I left BTS is I kind of realized that like the day-to-day of working, like just because you work in your passion, like I had this idea that I wanted to work in esports, and I finally got like my dream job, which is like working on events at a company that gives you a lot of creative freedom, which is basically BTS. Like BTS was like the perfect company to work at. And I was like, why does this still suck? And it was just because I realized like at the day-to-day work, it's like the spreadsheet doesn't like magically become dopamine inducing because it has to do with a Smash Brothers event. It's like a spreadsheet then as it is a spreadsheet for like a merch product as it is a spreadsheet for anything else. And until you get into like the actual like weekend of an event, all of the in-between steps are like basically the same. So it's like, why don't I keep doing like work, which is fine. I'm not like miserable. Let's just keep doing work in a company environment that allows me to fix these other parts of my life that I'm less happy about. And that's why I left.
That that's that is that I mean people still ask me, sometimes people still think I work at Twitch and people are like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I mean, when you're writing code at Twitch, it doesn't matter that you're at Twitch, you're still fucking, you're still going to stand up and people are fucking annoying. And that's cool. You're working on some fucking product that you actually care about. But I consider myself much more ingrained into Twitch now as a streamer than I ever was as an engineer.
100%.
In that sense, right? So anyway. I completely feel that, and that's really interesting to hear. I'd love to pick your brain more about it, but I guess at some point we do got to get in to bring some callers on. But before that, as there are some great questions in the Submit Topics channel, let's real quick address the community voice from last week, which the good producer Quinn is going to bring up and remind me what the fuck was the question. Dude, I gotta refresh.
Yeah, he was saying Sunsei was on last week, and he was asking if the community's gotten nicer, I believe, or something about toxicity.
And I'm so curious about what people have to say about this because I've been in the community for forever, and so have the two of you. But I sort of imagine that a lot of our, listeners may not necessarily have years and years of experience in the community. So let's see what they have to say. Abex, definitely think the average age of the community is a big factor, but I also think the maturity of the top competitors matters a lot. It's harder for they've gotten better at it. That's not
Why'd you pause? Why'd you pause, dude?
Why
you paused it.
What do you got to say,
dude? What do you got to say, dude?
Oh man.
Hey, let's get it going. This is the clip that can be shared around Twitter for the next fucking week if you just put somebody on blast right now.
Put somebody on blast right now. No, okay. So honestly, this is correct. I do think most people have gotten more mature, but I also think it's funny that some things never change. I don't know. I don't know. I think the Puff thing's not that bad. Fucking sue me. I think the Puff thing's not that bad. I also think the mature top competitors matters a lot. It's harder for fans to become toxic to players. They refer respectfully to each other. I think we're all happy to against controversy. That is all super true. There was way more there was definitely a period where I had to catch myself during the lockdown where I was like, what am I like we are so I don't know, man. Like COVID was tough for obviously a lot of fucking reasons, but that is 100% the case. And yeah, okay, I'm memeing. Obviously I'm memeing on fucking Leffen complaining on the mic right after a set or whatever. But I got to give all the top players, including and actually especially Leffen, a lot of credit. This is something I've pointed out from time to time. To be perfectly honest with you, a couple of years ago, even like 4 years ago, people were way worse, man. People would lose a set, they'd go on Twitter and blah, blah, blah. You actually don't see that much anymore. And I will go so far as to say, Aiden, I was actually a little bit refreshed when Leffen came and he complained about, the Puff thing. I actually, and maybe this is weird to say, but I had a little bit of a nostalgia, I was kind of like, this is how it used to be. Yeah, you'd lose and you'd be salty and you'd fucking be like, hey, we got to blah, 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 blah. These days, a lot of the times, man, somebody loses and they're not even that fucking salty about it. And it's, I don't know, in some ways I kind of miss it. I'll say it.
As a competitor who has tried to reel in his toxicity, I totally agree.
Right?
So part of me, like a little part of me, is like, yeah, Leffen, talk that shit. I don't even know if it's true, but talk that shit.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you know what? It is bullshit that he can up throw and rest you. I do think that's that's what part of me thinks deep down, and then the reasonable side of me has to wrestle with it a bit more. But I think I totally agree. It's like there was a sort of, I think it's the same nostalgia that I have when I go back and read the Mango Reddit comment on Hungrybox's AMA. It's like, I don't think that's chill, and people shouldn't do it, but it's like, damn, kind of miss it. Like,
Yeah, I kind of miss it. I definitely
part of me is like, oh, there was something to it, and then, but
like a
ultimately better that it's not around, of course.
Right. It was really funny. I was actually talking, speaking of Leffen, literally 2 weeks ago at Big House, I was talking with him about Latif in just the FGC. And Latif is somebody who has been, first of all, has been around for literally fucking forever. Like, I used to watch Latif's Guilty Gear combo videos in 2007. So he's been around for fucking ever. And basically, Latif's thing is he was really good, got like second at Evil in Street Fighter like in 09, and then disappeared for years, became Omega jacked, and is like the most swole motherfucker ever now, and then just started playing Strive and is really good. And I actually think, and that's not off topic, I actually think it's related, because me and Leffen were talking about how Latif's Johns, like, he gets salty when he loses these days.
Yeah.
But it's so endearing somehow. Like, the way he does it. This guy has like mastered the craft. And Leffen was actually remarking on this almost in an envious way. Like, I wish I could do that, because he was remarking on how Latif gets salty, and it only helps him. Like, the way he does it is so funny and like relatable in this way that it's like, fuck, like he lost this fucking like Strive tournament in Europe. He got third, and he went on the mic and he was like, if you play Ram, if you play Happy Chaos, if you play Nago, you're carried as fuck. And if you ever complain about any matchup, you should be banned from all future events. Fuck, I'm salty. And I just left him. Everyone just like, hey, man, brother. Hey, fucking man. Yeah. So I think there's something to it where it's like lit, and you just have to balance it out with not being too fucking toxic, which I think is about what these next two comments are basically about. And basically both Sky Vanguard and Space Opera, which are two really, really cool usernames, by the way. I gotta give props on both of those. But both, it sounds like both Sky Vanguard and Space Opera are basically saying, the top level of Melee, definitely much more friendly and respectful. That being said, Slippy Unranked does have this, little bit of a toxic environment, especially for low level players. And that is super duper definitely true. And it's wild because I'll log on sometimes as Toph and actually usually have a pretty pleasant experience, and then I'll log on my Smurf, and yeah, it is crazy. Like, I've definitely had 4 or 5 different very rude people, and it kind of almost breed, like, the toxicity breeds toxicity to where, like, I will go through 4 or 5 Falcos who are just lol spamming at the end of the one game before they quit, and then now my day is ruined. And I start wanting to one and done people and fucking BM people even before I know anything about them. And I'm just like, I have to fucking catch myself. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ. Like, so, there is that, but I don't know what the solution is. People were definitely toxic back on Anthers as well.
Famously toxic.
Oh God. Famously, right?
Yeah. There was a few people who were literally, can I say them?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. One of them, Tinkle something.
Yeah, Tizzlefix. Tizzlefix was like infamously toxic on East Coast Netplay, and then 9volt on West Coast Netplay.
9volt. Oh my God, the memories are coming back. Oh my God, 9volt. Oh my God, I have learned, not only experience, but I've learned slurs from 9volt.
Yes, 9volt. Dude, 9volt would win and call you some fucked up shit. It was insane. I just remember it was so funny because I had this like conversation with somebody and we were just like, 9volt is the Tizzlefix of the West Coast Anthers ladder.
9volt was I think if you log in, I'll do it later. I'm not gonna let myself be distracted. I think if you log into Smash, I think you can see your chat logs from the past. I want to dig up some of my old logs now because like.
Yeah,
that guy. Yeah. I never experienced Tizzlefix because West Coast, but
same. I think it's just so funny looking back on it. And there's just people that were known for being bad. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
It was insane. So I get why we're at where we're at now. And it's funny. I've kind of told this story just as a side note. I think I might have told this story either on stream or something, but I was playing Marth once, and people have actually gotten overly defensive about it. And what I mean by this is I was playing on unranked one time, and I was Marth, and I was trying to edge guard the space animal, and I was trying to, Marth, when they're side being, you have to either jab or side beat based on what height there are. If they're low enough, you want to down tilt, and if they're a little higher, you kind of want to jab. And I was trying to decide between down tilting and jabbing, and I teabagged the guy. I didn't mean to teabag the guy, but I was like, I crouched, I uncrouched, because I'm like, what height is he going to be at? And I guess the guy thought I was teabagging him, so he quit out and like lol spammed me and was like, basically like, fuck you. And I was like, I just wanted to hit my edge guard. I'm sorry. Like like fuck me, right? Like
you know what I do like one guilty pleasure. One guilty pleasure of Melee net play is that Melee, it's especially if your account is like relatively high elo. Melee is like small enough of a community still where you can like learn who it is and just ask them the next time you see them. Be like, yo, what's up? Why'd you taunt like that, dude? And then people crumble in person, which is hilarious.
That is really funny. Yeah, it's just that. I will say that generally when I get wrecked bad enough by somebody, I'm like, this person's probably just actually really fucking good, and then like I find out it's just like fucking, I don't know, Casper or something, and I'm like,
it's always somebody. If somebody's fucking you up good, hard, it's gonna be somebody good. I remember one night Nick was playing like in a Discord call. And we were just watching. Nick Envy. Yeah, and Envy is he is playing this Fox and he's just getting worked, which is like not often because he plays Falco well and he's like good against Fox and we're trying to figure out who this Fox is. And we're like, is it like Lucky? Like this dude is fucking insane. And Nick was actually so curious that he tweeted and we found out it was Schmugs from BC. Who's like a sick player, like ranked in BC, who's really good that not a lot of people know about. And it's just, and that's usually the case, right? Almost every time you play against somebody who's like cooking that much, it's like going to be somebody like semi-notable. And oftentimes oftentimes somebody that maybe doesn't like get to travel a lot, but they've just been cracked for years.
Dude, there was a week, like about a year or two ago where, I ran into two Marth players back to back that absolutely like fucking mixed my shit. And like I didn't rage quit it. I played them a couple games. Like I wasn't particularly mad about it, but I was like dejected. And I finished this session. I was like, dude, I am shit versus Marth. I am like, I thought I was putting things together in this matchup, but I guess I just wasn't, and I'm shit at it. And then the next day I wake up and I have two DMs from Pew Pew and Kadoran, who both said GG's. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm not that shit, and it's just Pew Pew and Kadoran.
The exact same thing happened to me. I was playing a Marth, and I was just getting worked. And it was off a week where I was playing super hot, and I'm just like, why can't I figure this out? Everything I know is wrong. I'm so bad at the game. And then the match ends, like after playing like 5 games, and Kevin Toy, GG's, man.
God, and it's just like, all right, god damn it. In the meantime, PP has no idea what we're talking about because PP's like, well, I just beat everybody. I don't know what. Couldn't be me. Can't relate.
When I smurf, I still get lol spam. People quit out early. Like if I'm beating them by a good bit, and they get their one stock or whatever, and you can always tell when they want their one. They quit out, and then they get a bunch of lulls in, and I sometimes spam lol because I know they're going to do it, so we both lol together because good time, right? We're both laughing, and then they leave.
Dude, can I? I'm just gonna reveal it. There's an account on Unranked, and they're West Coast. It's Hotbid, and he has an account called Falcon Punch AFK, and he plays Captain Falcon, and he plays until he lands a Falcon Punch, and then he immediately sets the controller down and doesn't do anything. And people, and then he won't play, like he won't quit out though. Like he won't like reset. He leaves Dolphin open until the other person is willing to quit out of the game. And that is my game that I play too, is because the super salty people that will like refuse to queue the match but won't queue out. Yeah. I'm like, as soon as somebody does that to me, dude, I just start playing Valorant and I leave the window open, and it's like I will win. I will always win this fight because I have another game that I like to play. And then Ken does the same thing, like the psychopath he is.
God, that is psychopathic behavior. I love No, I was gonna say I love it. I hate Ken, but I love Ken. I would
I
never do
love
that,
Ken.
but I love Ken.
I don't know.
That is incredibly toxic. You're saying, hang on, sorry. He Falcon punches them.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
So
insane.
he plays with Falcon
He's
and
not
then win or lose. It doesn't matter if he's 3 stocks up or 3 stocks down. If he lands the Falcon punch, he puts the controller down and quits.
These are the people that are running. These are the people that are running your community. I just want you to know that these are the people. I've definitely. I will say. I'm not gonna name names, but I've definitely run into like TOs. Like, and I know for a fact it's a TO, and like they get very salty, and I'm like, this is weird. Like, I didn't think TOs had it in them, but I mean, I don't know. I guess we all get salty from time to time, and that's the universal bond that we all have here on the wide world, the wide ocean of Slippy Unranked. And with that, let's bring on our first caller, because I know there's like fucking 6 or 7 of you, and we're not going to get through all the questions. Obviously, we're running a little bit late, but let's get some of the good ones in. And our first caller is going to be PPM. No, PPMD's already been in here. Hi, PP.
Hi.
It's going to be
Aiden
who's our
Airy.
first caller.
Yo.
Oh, and there. Oh, what's up,
What's
dude?
up? Where are you calling in
doing?
from? What's your question for us
Hello,
today,
hello.
gamer?
I'm calling from Mexico. Hello, how are you? I know how to speak English. Are all you doing?
Good.
I mess up when I'm talking in front of people.
You're gonna be fine. You got this. You got this.
So my question is mostly for Aiden. It's as someone who is trying to grow the scene in Mexico as a TO. I run a monthly in a bar. What would you do to make the new players feel more welcome to the community and motivate them to continue the grind? Because I feel like most of them just go once per month. They play melee and they stop playing for a month. And also, I kind of feel people in my community are leaving faster than new people are joining.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think this is a problem in like most communities. I think the 2 tips that I could give is like the first thing is you can change the tournament experience to like better suit new incoming players. So like traditionally a local bracket will just be like a big double elimination bracket. And unfortunately, I think that's like a pretty alienating experience in an age where I think the average person willing to attend a local is like pretty good. That's changed a bit with like Slippy bringing an influx of new talent in, but I think like for example, I was talking about this with somebody recently, but if you guys remember, like end of 2018, early 2019 was probably the worst time you could show up to a local as a new player. Like, because the only people going were like the people who had played for 5 years and still cared enough to go. So you would just show up, and even if you were half decent, you would get absolutely worked. And I think that's a pretty hard way to be introduced to a scene. I always reflect on like my first big tournament in like January 2014. I showed up, I couldn't wave dash, and I would just get stuck in shine all the time, and I still won a set because it was like at a time where so many new people were entering new tournaments at once that it sort of allowed every set between beginners to like be close, which is a pretty, I think like basically impossible in like this sort of era if you show up like with no tech skill or punish game like whatsoever. I think creating a tournament environment for the people who are most likely to go 0-2 and 1-2 is really important. The easiest way to do this, in my opinion, run ladder, and it's available as a feature on Smash GG. You can run ladder tournaments. Basically, it allows people to queue for matches on their phone, similar to how you would online matchmake in like a online video game. And you just keep playing. It doesn't matter how many times you've won or lost. And as you progressively play more, it matches you up with people of like a similar record. So if you're like 1-6 in ladder, it's not going to put you against like the top player who's like maybe 6-0. It puts you against an opponent with a similar score. So like as you can play as many matches as you want, and it's basically like skill-based matchmaking as you go through the tournament. So I think switching locals to ladder experiences is like a really easy change that a lot of TOs could make that is like better suited for new players. Because the experience of like going to a local should be about hanging out and playing a bunch, not showing up for 30 minutes, being out of the tournament and feeling like you have nothing to do. I think that is one big change you could make. And then the other thing, and I think like a few communities are like particularly good about doing this, is like you as the TO or you as like your group of TOs, like being particularly like friendly and inviting to newcomers, asking them a lot of questions, inviting them to like hang out or like go out to dinner after. Give people like social reasons to come partake every week rather than like a tournament reason. And I think the scenes in my head that do a really good job of this, like the nightclub is obviously it's in New York,
yeah.
right? But they have a lot of like camaraderie in that local scene, and I think that's a big part of like why people go and why it's so much fun to hang out there. I think Verdugo, the Verdugo crew in SoCal does the same thing. I think like the core group attending every week is like pretty good friends and they hang out, and like that's one of the main places they all like spend time together, and it's not just about the Melee. And then the two other scenes that I wanted to shout out were I think Seattle U/UW now is like UW is has always been pretty good since like Owen was in charge, but I think the Seattle U crew has kind of like taken over in this regard. And from my understanding, like the group of people that run Seattle like locals now is like really tight knit, and it's like they do a lot of things together in and outside of tournaments, and that I think that creates something that people want to be a part of. And then the last scene I wanted to shout out was the Melbourne crew in Australia. And they were one of the only scenes that was growing during the period where everywhere else was declining. And I think it's because they're such like good boys. Like everybody like goes to hang out and like they go fucking clubbing together. They go to bars together. They do all that shit together. And it's about hanging out. I think like there are like Australian cultural aspects that actually do contribute to that. Like I think like we've talked a lot about this with like Miles and Josh, man, about how like when you come up in Australia, it's like there's like compared to America, it's like it's not as like people don't aspire to like make it big there. You kind of like play your part in the group, and you're like in your community, and your boys are like what you live for, and it's not about like gaining like a big career or success like personally. And that culture I think shapes the Melee scene as well, but they like do that so well that people want to like you know that scene in the documentary where it's like PC Chris was one of the few things other gamers weren't. So cool. Like and the Australian guys are like that. It's like just a bunch of like cool guys who like happen to play Melee, and they get together every week at like a bar, and like that's why their community grew, I think. And it's a really cool thing that they do that. So creating that sort of environment that people want to like, it's an equally important part in their social life as well as like a competitive outlet. I think shoot for those type of things and see what other successful scenes you can model off of. I hope that's a good answer.
That was a good answer. I will definitely take a look at the ladder. I actually run the events on challenge because
because Smash GG sucks.
I have no idea how to use it. The guy who like our older the last TO left to Cancun, so I like I'm doing this now, and I also asked Toph to stream it in his channel, but we are also figuring out how to stream because we are new to this, you know. So I will definitely take a look at the ladder.
Yeah, but I'm super down. FYI, definitely down.
I gotta practice with my stream first, and then move it to yours. Probably.
I have no standards on my stream. I can give you my stream key right now. In fact, I'll just paste in chat so everyone can choose my channel on stream. That's right. Thank you, Adenary. Aiden, it's funny because Adenary edits for both me and PP, so he's our.
I used to edit for a bit. I also edited one video for Aiden. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh you did a great job. You did a great job.
Why is there's no money on Smash? Yeah.
You did a wonderful job. Thank you.
I watched that video. I watched that video.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Aiden because like I know he does a lot like for the community or like
Thank you.
You know what I'm saying,
Yeah, for sure,
Thank
man.
you,
Hey, thank you for calling in. Hope you have a good rest of your game.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
See ya.
And well, you know what they say. Can't spell Adenary without Aiden.
It's true. It's remarkably
it's
close.
true. I don't know. It's got the same letters. Why is that relevant? It's not. Hey, let's bring our next caller and not think about it too hard. Looks like we got Jay Plums, the legend from Twitch chat. What's up, Jay Plums? I don't think it's your first time calling in, but where are you calling in from?
Calling in from Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
Hell yeah.
What's your question for us today?
Yeah, I do have a question. It's that are there any tournament formats that you feel like have untapped potential, either with respects to like maximizing entertainment or having the best like so-called competitive integrity, whereas like the absolute best player of that day wins, either with or without logistics and money in mind, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. I think like as base things that have like already been done are like you don't have to reach very far to get. the one thing that I called Redemption Ladder at Dome Park 18, and we also tried it at a few other one-day events that were like regionals, which I wouldn't recommend doing. I don't think this format is very good for one-day events. But the idea is that a big part of like going to majors and competing like kind of sucks if you drown in pools, which is the majority of players, because you're kind of done competing for the weekend and you don't really have anything else to go do, and it can really like suck like the joy out of you a bit to know that you're done competing and just completely out of the tournament. Especially if maybe you just had a bad beat or like an unlucky bracket or whatever. The redemption ladder was this concept where we use the ladder feature that I just mentioned, and players can compete in the ladder for like 12 hours on the first day, whether they were like in or out of pools. And pools ran for like, 6 hours that day, something like that. But you could continue competing in the ladder after. And the top 16 people from the ladder that didn't make it out of pools were added back into bracket on Sunday. And you could only do this by like grinding a lot of matches against like hundreds of other competitors. So it's like, it wasn't like an easy thing to do. You couldn't show up to the ladder for like 20 minutes and then make it back into bracket. It was like you had to like sit there and grind for like at least 90 minutes. I think Fendi did it the fastest because he had like a bad beat in his pool where like a really low seeded player happened to upset him and make it out in winners. And we added 16 people back into bracket as like, that's your way of like earning your spot back in the main event. And I think it encourages everybody to grind and continue competing. And it gives those people who are like there at an event primarily to compete a better experience. And also scheduling wise, I think it worked a lot better than like waterfall formats that like 64 community uses, because the issue with like waterfall formats and similar types of like automatic progression to amateur bracket stuff is a lot of the people showing up who go 0-2 actually don't want to play more. They just showed up for like a fun weekend, happen to enter bracket. And the thing that was nice is like you don't deal with a bunch of DQs in your amateur bracket because the ladder is automatically filtering through the people willing to continue competing or not. And and it's fluid scheduling. You don't have to like divide it into waves and shit like that because like people just drop in and out over the course of the day as they please. They get to play at their own cadence. And I think that system works really, really well at a 2-day event. I want to specify that. I would not do it at a 1-day event. So that's one format that I think is like really underutilized, and one thing I regret not implementing at the last main stage I ran, which ties into what I was talking about earlier, where I think I did a poor job putting effort into that event. So that's one thing, and then the other thing that I wanted to talk about was how to make kind of the like earlier tournament process, earlier tournament broadcast like more interesting. So there was a format that I ran at Saving Mr. Lombardi 2, I think, where like 16 people were like progressed into pools of like, basically they were floated into pools with like only top players. And then the open bracket, similar to this weekend's LCQ, fed into those pools where those players played like round robin matches that fed into a bracket. And I think I do acknowledge that this sort of gets rid of the like completely open entry, everybody's equal sort of concept that we've had at majors for a really long time. But I think if we want to like elevate the game viewership wise and elevate the game like as a broader like esport, you need to understand that like nobody wants to watch like the worst seed in the tournament get the brakes beat off them by IBDW. Like it's just like it's not a good viewing experience for like anybody. I think there was a rare time where everybody was getting into the game where it was cool to watch like Armada like just absolutely demolish somebody, but that lasted like 2 years, and now the foundation of viewership for this game is like primarily people who have known about it for a considerable amount of time, and like that's not interesting anymore. And what the community cares about now, and you can see this like easily through like viewership stats, is like you need to have the top echelon of players playing against one another to have viewership for events. It's just like how it works. Nobody gives a shit about Pools Day anymore. Even for Ultimate, the viewership is fading. Like, and I think what this lets you do is you can have a pool of like upper echelon, like top players competing against one another earlier on in the tournament while your sort of like open qualifier bracket is progressing. And then those people earn their spot in pools with the top players. And then the rest of the main event like plays out, so to speak. And I think that's like a better structure for viewership, and also something that like if you could if you could bring some like money and stability and like basically provide that consistently across events, it would be kind of like creating a Slippy Champions League or Summit Champions League, if you will, for major tournaments. And that's what I think the circuit like should be, by the way. It's like if we were to do a circuit a certain way, it's like use your money to get like 16 fixed players out to like each major totem pole event that you could plan out across the world. That way the schedule is like fixed. You always have a guarantee of top talent at the every event that are locked in. The open bracket is whoever is willing to fly themselves out to that event. And then the bottom cut of those 16 or like whoever is in pools are the people that are relegated, that like Summit Champions League. So the group of 16 like can fluctuate over time. And those are the players that you're like subsidizing and making sure attend every event. And that way you always have like a main stage of these like major pillar events that people can like follow and fixate over the year. We're not worried about this tournament on this circuit not having this top player in attendance because they got helped and the schedule was locked a year in advance. And then every open player has a chance to earn a spot in that 16 group of people that is having their expenses covered. And like that is what I think is like the ideal format for like viewership, open competitors, circuits, like that type of shit.
Yeah.
And now that we've proven it with like the Papa John's deal in my mind, it's like there's a sales team and a structure to like get the money to like fund something like that. And that is like the best thing we could do like structure wise for like the scene, in my opinion. Is like that's what we could do.
That is okay. I'm gonna throw in. I'm just gonna throw in a real quick because I don't know if I'm the biggest SCL fan in the world. SCL was the coolest fucking shit ever. Anyone who doesn't like SCL, if you're a top player, then it's legit because it was probably very stressful. If you're not a top player, you suck my nuts. SCL was so fucking. It was literally the coolest thing ever. Like the fucking sickest format, and I really do appreciate because it's like, what do we have now that we've never had before? We've got these circuit things. Let's actually fucking do something with them. Let's make it's like, so someone asked the question, how are they any different than just having tournaments on successive weekends? That is the same thing we've always had, but then there's a finals now. It's like, let's actually do something with that, which is super sick. Like, I think that is definitely something that I hope gets visited for future years. I wanted to ask you what you thought about, maybe we just got lucky on this one, but Big House had a very interesting, for me as a caster, because most majors, you're right. Most majors, when I show up on Friday, I get ready to watch S2J double four stock some fool, right? Yeah. And I'm like, I'm showing up to my Friday block and I'm like, it's going to be whatever. And I showed up to Big House and my first match that I casted at Big House was Null versus, I hate to bring this up, Geo, I don't know why. I'm sorry. Geo, I'm sorry. Anyway, it was Null versus Ober, where Null got 2-0'd.
Yeah.
Sorry, Gio.
Do you? Unrelated. Yeah. Did you see Null's bracket at the Invitational? Did you guys see that?
No,
dude.
No.
At one tournament, Null played Wally, Kazu, Triff, and Polish.
No. What? Did he beat any of them? Tell me he at least beat some of them.
Yeah. Null reverse 3-0'd Wally and Kazu.
Oh wow!
And almost Triff choked it game 5 against Triff.
Okay.
Wow.
That's fucking wild.
Null played all the peaches. It was so funny.
That is really weird. This is only rivaled by The Real Thing, who played Lunar Dusk and Slug back-to-back, I believe, at Big House, which is a fewer number of players, but it is also 100% of the Ice Climbers community. Mm-hmm. So that's wild to play 100% of the player base of one character in one tournament. Anyway, shout out to The Real Thing. Big House did something interesting with scheduling, correct? Like Big House did some kind of scheduling thing that Blur rambled about, but I kind of tuned it out because it was Blur.
They start the round 2 pools immediately after the round 1 pools. Like the way the cadence is like all the round 1 pools in one wave, all the people making it out of like that first wave of round 1 pools are playing their round 2 pool immediately after against each other, while the next round 1 pool in the other wave plays at the same time. What this did is it like gives you the round 2 pool matchups like way earlier in the event, which I will totally say is like an upgrade from like the old days of watching again Armada play like just some guy. And I think this is a better, it's a better viewership experience, but it's like not something, it's like, I don't mean to discredit Ober and Null, because I think something that a bystander who's just watches Melee like pretty passively does not, they probably do not understand how good both of those players are. And like Null is like becoming more notable, I would say. But they see Ober Null, and on paper to that person, it is basically the same as watching like Jimmy 2 versus John. Like it, and that's just the way it is. Like it is that way.
Even though they're like
way more people know like Mango and Zane than like and Amsa than know who Ober is. And it's a shitty part. And if you want to move the viewership needle, it's like we made a change that like gets the viewership from like 1,000 people to like 3,000 or 4,000 people. But you know how you move the needle to 15,000 or 20,000 is you have Zane play null. You have Zane play null on day one. And this is like, I think SCL basically proved this. Is like we had basically a weekly tournament with the best talent in the game that was hitting like 30K viewers on Twitch, and
it would just offer it. Event starts, boom, 30K.
Yeah, and the stakes are like they're understandable. I'm not saying to copy that format exactly, by the way. I think like changing around the way like not divisions and like having the top 16 work differently. But the general idea is like the viewership rests in the hands of this pool of like top 20 to top 25 players. And then also, this is the good thing about, and I think this is really, really important, is like a player might, like Ober, not literally Ober, but a player like Ober might say, well, like, where's my stream time, right? Like, where is my chance to get noticed and recognized? But the format, if we follow like what I'm saying, you create an environment where there is an understanding that anybody who has made it to this group of people is also like valuable, is worth it. And people like, the best examples I can think of this are when Daki made it into SEL. The broader community didn't know who Daki was, right? But all of a sudden, he has this massive platform because this tournament is understood to be this great thing. Daki is on a broadcast with 15,000 people now. And instead of 1,000 or 2,000 people watching Daki play Ober, they're watching Daki play Sunsei at a tournament that is like that 15,000 people are watching instead. And then similarly, I really wanted to do this when we had Smash Summit 10 online, or Smash Summit 10 where we flew everybody out and they played privately in rooms and it wasn't actually online.
Right. It's crazy that you guys did that.
We had the EU summit play out at the beginning of day 3, and we started our day 3 schedule a little late. That EU tournament had almost 15,000 viewers, I recall, which is the highest an EU tournament had in like 5 years. Why was that the case? An EU tournament in a vacuum would never get that many views, but because we attached it to this prestigious thing that a bunch of people were going to tune in for anyway, a bunch of people learned who Solo Battle was that weekend. And that's how you need to think about it when you're like an architect of the scene, is like you need to, if you want to give people opportunities, you need to create the things that maximize viewership and then tack on people and things where you can so people benefit from that growth. It's like, and that's what I would say to all the like the Obers and like maybe the Wallies of the world, people on the cusp who are incredible players. They're so good at the game and they can do such good things, but it's like we need to create environments that draw in like the Jimmy Two Shoes viewer, who is like unfortunately the primary mechanism for like monetizing and like providing recognition to players.
Yeah, that is very true. And there's one thing I wanted to ask you real quick, by the way. This is actually piggybacking off something you said much earlier in the broadcast, but you just reminded me that I wanted to ask you about this because I didn't realize this, and maybe I just didn't think about it as deeply at the time. But like you mentioned that so for the first home park, I think you mentioned that like the quad stream got like 10K viewers on the first day. Yeah. So my question to you is, did viewership used to work differently where you could just put shitty shitty's the wrong, you know what I mean? Shitty matches
100%. On 100%. You can go through like the arc because oh fuck, you got me going on this right now. I'm trying to
No. Keep going.
This stuff is like so important, and I feel like people don't.
I need to know this. I don't know this.
The viewership, and that Blur is actually a good person to talk to about this because he saw the Twitch stats over the years and he has a pretty good understanding of how like viewership worked. And this is what I meant when I said Ultimate is falling out of this phase. When you're at the beginning of a game, which we could call 2013, 2014 like the beginning of Melee in a way. It was functionally the beginning because the influx of people was so large, we were like resetting the scene. It was basically like a new game got released. And in that time period, think about everybody you talked to about when they got into Melee. Like the primary entry period was basically 2014 to 2016. Like most of those people in 2015 and 2016. Because it bled into those years. A bunch of people found out about it. People decided to go to tournaments. Like those were the the new years, and that people get into this new thing they're excited about. That's when locals in like we're hitting like 100+ people on weeknights every week. Like the middle of nowhere could have like a 40-person Melee tournament because so many people were finding out about it at the same time. At the same time, weeklies like Xanadu and SSS and like all these tournaments could hit 5,000, even 10,000 viewers with players like Westballs and Johnny playing in grand finals because the influx of interest into the game is so fresh and new. And players like Lord could become famous through like one combo because it like hit big on Reddit the next day. And like all these like mechanisms of notoriety and fame, like were peaking because so many people wanted to get into the game at the same time, and it was a fresh thing for all of those new people, right? It's like right now we're all old and jaded fans who have seen 1 billion tournaments, and I don't really want to watch like shitty Melee anymore. But back then it was like every set was interesting. Who is like I'm trying to think of a player like I do want to watch like Odie versus like the second best Link in Pittsburgh. Like I do want to watch that because Melee is just sick, and I want to watch every minute of it.
Yeah.
And like I don't think a player like Borp could like exist in this time period. Like he could not reach the same notoriety and fame because of the way the team has like the scene has developed and like what is considered like notable and interesting and like what the base viewership for Melee is doing now. Like that was such a unique time period that we will never get back to. Like and the way the scene has like changed is like, well, now all these people who got into Melee like slowly bleed away from it. It becomes like not their primary interest anymore. Local attendance goes down, regional attendance goes down, viewership goes down at most tournaments. Viewership stays relatively stable at like majors.
Because those people will tune in for Mango fucking Z. They still want to watch.
Yeah.
They remember, and they'll tune in for the best of the best.
Like that's the viewership that fell off the least is like the viewership for super majors, even though it did tank. Like if you look at the graph in like 2018, it fucking tanked for everything. Like but overall, like majors, like top 8 viewership is still really like strong right now and has remained pretty strong. But it's that local viewership where you could like boot up your like where a stream like Foundry could exist and have like 3,000, 5,000 viewers on a weeknight. It's not possible to create anymore. Yeah. That environment does not exist. And Ultimate went through the same thing where like when Ultimate came out, it was this fresh new game, incredibly popular, like on a giantly like successful console. And Ultimate Pools matches could have 20K viewers like in the first like year or so. And the YouTube viewership is amazing and it's still pretty good, right? But you can see it fading. Like when you look at Pools viewership for Ultimate now that the game has been out for a few years and opinions have settled and it's not as fresh and as new, the viewership for Pools is going down. And even the viewership for Majors is going down because the like how unconventional it is and how fresh and how new it is gone. All of that brings that initial wave of people in doesn't exist anymore. And it needs to like be maintained by like different things, by like storylines in the esports itself, which will like mostly fluctuate around the top players. And so we're just out of that period in like Melee's history now. And we need to rethink the way like viewership works because it used to function, it literally functioned differently. I hit the sweet spot. I got in at the right time. I started TOing at the right time. I ran a major at the perfect time. Don't Park, my first major, ultimately shittily run, hit 35K peak viewers, which was amazing at the time. And all I had to do was like make Reddit posts and shit. That doesn't work anymore. You can't just like pop up a major, have 1,000 people show up because you made posts on Reddit. It just doesn't like the way you have to access and market to the community and create a successful event and broadcast is just so dramatically different from that like golden window where you could like, dude, you could like piss out a Melee local and like 500 people could watch. Like it's just a totally different time.
How much of this, I think you're super duper on the nose about, you know, the demographic itself, i.e. the Melee audience. And, you know, the fact that the game was functionally new. I wonder how much of it also, as someone who I'm sure, you know, Ludwig, for example, I know, thinks about this sort of thing and talks about it a good bit. I wonder how much of it is also just the content model that most people consume, consume, let's say, gaming content via now. Because when I think about my own viewing habits, like back then, I'd get home from work and I'd turn on a Twitch stream. These days, I feel like I'm a lot more watching fucking shorts on shit or I've got
Yeah.
YouTube out on my, you know what I mean? Like and that's why even not even tournaments and stuff, but also even just content creators. You've got your more old school guys, you've got your Northern Lions and your Markipliers or what have you, and you've got people who are putting out long form Let's Plays on YouTube. But those are, if you didn't get into that a couple of years ago, you're probably not being successful in that sphere now. And everything's got to be so much punchier now. And do you think that feeds into this at all as well?
Yeah,
I
definitely.
know it's probably a little bit of both, right? Probably a little
Definitely
bit
does. I think it's hard. It's hard for me to say exactly, because I think this is like the thread of it where it ties into like greater gaming content and consumption. Right. I haven't thought about how these things like quite link up yet, but like it definitely plays a part when like kids who are like in the pipeline of becoming players and fans of games down the line are looking at TikTok and YouTube Shorts instead of looking at like forums and Facebook Messenger and like Facebook groups and shit like that, right? Like there's certainly something there, and I mean, not. Oh, fuck. I don't mean this in like a shitty way.
No.
I hope this makes sense. But it's like I think this is a problem esports teams are jumping into, where it's like esports was supposed to be this grand gold rush of like people. The mainstream is going to be so locked into competitive gaming and esports, and like the teams need to get involved and the investment needs to come in, and it's like. But why are all? It's like it's not working out how they all thought it would. Let's say that.
You can. By the way, you. I just want you to know. Don't worry about it. I have bashed esports as a whole so much on this Golden Guardians production, and we know that every esports team is basically, kind of trying to patch up a sinking ship. Except for Golden Guardians, is doing great because let's go Steph Curry. So don't worry about it. Like whatever reservations you have about saying what you're about to say, don't worry about it.
So it's like, why are all these orgs that were like so gung ho on like esports players years ago, like putting all their money into like content creators and like content houses and content machines, which is like all the teams like building like facilities for people to stream out of? Like it's a waste of fucking money in my opinion. Like I don't know. It's just to like rationalize it in a boardroom somewhere, I'm sure. But it's like it's the idea that like the money is like changing hands, and the way people like consume entertainment and consume like gaming content, and like gaming content on the whole, I feel like is kind of like phasing out in a way where it's like all these people that came up on like gaming initially, it's like where do they get their most viewership now? When they do like IRL streams and like game shows and shit like that. Like the content consumption of like culture is like pivoting away from gaming in a weird way. And I'm sure that has like weird trickle down effects on like discovery in esports, because like I do think ultimately esports is separate from like general entertainment. Like you'd be surprised like the disconnect of like an XQC viewer from esports. It's like pretty segmented.
Oh, yeah.
Like a lot of these people watching streams for entertainment are like not really invested or connected to esports at all. Right. And that's something that's really interesting for me to discover as time passes, is like, dude, like the average, like Ludwig might have like 20,000 people watching him fucking, unbox a Jackie Chan statue that just, that he just had shipped to the house. It's fucking terrifying, by the way. I hate seeing the silhouette of like a man in the house with it just pop up in my peripheral vision. Anyway, the point being that like the average person tuned into that, like they might not know who Simple is. They might not even know who Faker is. And they're just watching Ludwig because he's Funny Guy. And I guess Funny Guy puts on Smash tournaments sometime. So basically all I'm saying is like at the root of it, I don't know, but I think like the way content is consumed is like probably changing the way people discover and interact with games. But I don't think that like, I don't know if that bucks like the overall trend that is primarily influencing Smash viewership, which is basically how new the Smash game is and what players are on the screen.
Right. I will even go so far to say, because I've been thinking about this in particular lately for like no reason. I don't know. I will go so far as to say is probably the conclusions that people draw today about how to think about gaming content and how to push it I would not even be surprised if those conclusions just aren't even pertinent anymore 6-7 years down the line. Because so much of what, I don't know, how do I word this? I feel like so much of the way that people consume content is sort of, at the end of the day, unique to the platform that's being served on. And if a new content platform just comes around and just dethrones whatever the existing top dogs are, like when TikTok showed up and just fucking, well, I guess everyone's doing shorts now. And I don't know if that's going to pan out forever. Maybe fucking 5 years from now, everyone just kind of gets tired of that and it's the next fucking thing. And I don't know.
Dude, that's how I feel. I don't know,
right?
Dude. I don't know. It's
anyone purporting to have the answer is just fucking trying to sell you something. I swear.
There's some weird question here of how, think about how you discovered gaming communities, and think about the way you spent your time on the internet, and the way kids spend their time on the internet now, and how that influences their ability to become a fan of something and participate in something. And it's do you really have if I spent all my time on TikTok as a kid instead of on forums, would I want to get involved in a competitive video game at all? Would I ever turn the console on if I was just on the TikTok dopamine drip all the time? And I don't know. I do. Gaming is still big. Gaming in a general sense, kids still play video games, of course. But the way kids find games and interact with games, and competitive games being at the forefront of gaming is changing. And I don't know if we'll know until 5-10 years from now, what is happening right now.
There are going to be Zoomers, and I mean Zoomers as in the more literal sense, literally current generation Zoomers, who will be nostalgic about, and they will talk about TikTok the way we talk about forums.
Yeah.
They will be like, dude, back in our fucking day, man, you fucking new kids wouldn't get it, man. We were on TikTok and people hit the sickest clips and they put them on TikTok, okay? And you fucking new kids, whatever the fuck you're doing now, which I don't know, obviously, you wouldn't get it. TikTok was, that's going to be just the case. And it's so fucked to think about it that way, but it just is what it is. Anyway.
Yeah, it's weird. I hope, I hope personally is in general, I think esports viewership, if you look at all the big post-COVID events, if you look at the Dota major and the CSGO majors that have happened, and I don't know about Smash exactly, but League, Worlds, all of these things went up in watch time. And I don't know if that's because the psychologist that works at Riot just had a better marketing plan this year, or if over time, retention and interest in these things is actually substantially building. And
I have my crackpot theory, which is that these numbers are easy to fudge. And never mind. You know what? I'm not going to get too into it. I'm just worried that I'm too deep in the sauce.
Yeah. We can.
I'm sure they're going up. I'm sure it's great. Those aren't.
I'm sure the YYTV and Doyu viewership stats are absolutely accurate. Anyway.
100%. Hey, good question, J Plums. Sorry we got a little bit off the rails, but I had a lot of fun talking about that. And there was one more thing I wanted to say, which was about something about, we're talking about consuming content. Fucking. I don't know what it was. All right, whatever. It probably wasn't that important. Or if it was important, it wasn't that important. It's fine. Hey, thanks, J Plums. Hey, you got any shout outs you want to do, J Plums?
I definitely do have some shout outs. Firstly, I've got a shout out to you, Aiden. I love the advice pod. And secondly, I want to really shout out all the TOs in the Greater Toronto area who keep seeing me to play Puff Dittos. It's really cool and it's really exciting. And thanks a lot.
Of that. Have a good rest of your day, J Plums.
Have a good rest of your day, J Plums. Aren't Puff Dittos kind of fun to play, though? I always thought they were boring to watch, but fun to play. Never mind. It's fine. Don't worry about it. We're not going to get into it. Hey, what's up, Big A in chat? All right, see you, J Plums. Sorry about that. If you ain't talking Billy, says Atrock, you ain't talking bills. While Atrock is here, I'm going to, just because I think Aiden, at least you would appreciate it, I told a great joke at dinner the other night that Nick Allen was there for. Atrock wasn't there for it, so I had to catch him up on it the next day. We were talking about boxing and brain damage. Brain damage, CTE.
Yeah.
Get punched in the head.
Yeah,
CTE,
I'm familiar.
Chronic something encephalopathy. And we're talking about boxing, and someone said something at dinner. Blur or somebody was like, boxing's really good for your health. Just make sure you don't get hit in the head or whatever. And I was like, hey, yeah, but you know what they say. And he was like, what? And I said, better to have bad CTE than a bad CTR. A-Truck really liked that when I told him about it. No one else liked it. Everyone else wanted me to fuck off.
Really funny. That's a great
Thank
joke.
you, Aiden. This is why we bring you on the pod. That's fucking right. It was funny. Let's go.
That's the type of joke. This is whenever because I feel like there's kind of this like weird like niche area of like that type of joke. Like every time I have like a joke that I'd consider like in that vein that is like some weird crossroads of like gaming and politics, I'll just send it to like Atriok only because he's like I feel like my general audience on Twitter like won't like think it's funny at all, but I'll send it to Atriok and he'll hit me with the LMAO. I always appreciate that.
Yeah, and you get your little big A dopamine rush, then you're done.
Yeah,
100%. 100%. A-Truck is actually so fucking clutch for that. And hey, he might not get back to you until 3 days later, but when he does get back to you, you're gonna have a fat LMAO in your inbox. I'm saying. Anyway. Hey, I know we've Quinn, I know we're pretty down the road. We got in a lot of good discussions. Are we doing any more callers? Are we bringing anyone else on? I know we're pretty into the program here. What are we doing? We got one more. All right, let's get the last call. Let's get the last call in here. Let's go. Who do we got? We got Rye tuning in. What's up, Rye?
How y'all doing? What's
How
up?
you doing? Where are you calling in from?
Louisiana, down south.
Sick.
Yes, go.
I know. The question is for Aiden. It's really an extension of the really interesting conversation y'all just had about viewership, but it's with respect to the invitational that just happened. Really, it's about like the implication of viewership as, again, what y'all were talking about, like the consolidation of like just viewers in general, because a lot of Zoomers are watching kind of long form content less and less. At the end of the stream, there was a quick, someone like commented that one of the things you were disappointed by, Aiden, was the viewership being a little low, but understanding it to be a quad and it being a fairly new thing for kind of, Melee really just as like a viewing audience. Do you think you were being a little too hard on yourself, or have you really gone back, crunched the numbers, and it might be more indicative of like where the future of Melee viewership is headed?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I don't know if I think I was hard on myself in purely the sense of what I would have expected this event to be at on Twitch. Like if it was if it was on PTS Smash, if it was on VGBC, on Twitch, it's like rather than like just like I'm not comparing this tournament against like the viewership of tournaments 2 years ago or 4 years ago. I'm comparing it to like Big House the previous week and the Super Major from like the month before. Like how the viewership exists in like the time period that we exist in right now, where it's like I think it's more fair to compare it against things. And I think unfortunately, Twitch just lacks YouTube lacks a discoverability and also an esports viewing base that like Twitch has that allows your tournament to sort of like snowball and be watched by more people. Because I think they're like the main issue is that the primary like marketing mechanism for this tournament, especially during pools, is Ludwig fans and Alpha Rad fans seeing that like their YouTuber is live right now. Mm-hmm. And if like they don't like the content, which, a Smash tournament is admittedly pretty far from what Ludwig is posting on his YouTube channel normally or streaming on his YouTube channel normally. So if you're a typical Ludwig fan, and I don't fault them for it, you're probably not going to tune in. Like it's just like the way it is. But on Twitch, if that tournament is like live on even like a base channel, right? Even if it's not PTS Smash or VGBC, you're streaming on like any channel, the category starts to go up in viewership, and people see this category that they're a fan of, and that stream gets recommended to them. And also, an esports fan is more likely to be looking for broadcasts on Twitch than they are on YouTube. Where it's like on Twitch, it's like naturally fed to you through the homepage, but on YouTube, I have to go and like know what channel it's on and search it, unless I happen to be subscribed to Ludwig already. And Ludwig's subscriber base does not like have a very large crossover like Venn diagram with like general esports fan, kind of like what I was talking about earlier, where it's like you could ask like some random guy in like Cutie Cinderella's chat, and like he probably doesn't know who Simple is, even though like Simple's the fucking GOAT. And I think that's I think YouTube was like the primary reason like we weren't hitting the numbers I was like expecting to hit. We also like there was also things we can do to improve that. Like I don't think I had a very like cohesive marketing plan for like drawing people to the YouTube streams. Probably should have like planned and gone over things with Ludwig more. But you know, we're like stretched kind of thin, and that takes a lot of like effort, and like that's probably an aspect that I like failed the event in. But I think like you can just like if we had like Smash Summit 11 like play out on Ludwig's channel with like the Mango comeback and all, we probably would have like not hit anywhere close to the viewership peak that tournament did. Because I think Smash Summit 11 hit like 110, 115K across like the two Twitch channels that were being watched, whereas like Melee at this event like peaked at like 55, something like that. And not to say that the consequences or like the historic like aspect of the sets were necessarily similar, but I think like even Big House the previous week, like, you know, got to like 80 or 75, something like that. And I think like with this amount of top talent, especially with Leo's run, like Ultimate reached a higher peak. I think Ultimate hit like 65 to 70K, like in that range. And I bet that would have been way higher on Twitch. Like I would not be surprised if we added like another like 15 to 20K viewers for both streams if like the viewership like snowball effect that we would have had on Twitch was thrown in there. Because if you look at the social presence for this event, like if you look at how many like tweets and like interactions and like positive feedback there was like on Twitter about this event, as far as I can tell, it's like some of the highest that I have ever seen, like social engagement wise. And that is not really like reflected in the viewership. And like, what's the primary difference between this tournament and every other tournament? Well, it's just that it's on YouTube. And, So, and I think that would have helped the side streams especially, because I think the side streams were on smaller channels that were marketed less, and like those channels are discoverable through like a squad stream or like the category feature on Twitch, whereas like on YouTube, you had to actively go seek them out.
Right, and like you literally had to, like Ludwig would just say every now and then, or one of us would just say, "Hey, by the way, if you want to check out the quad stream, it's over on Ludwig VODs." And it's like, I'm subscribed to Ludwig, I'm subscribed to Mogul Mail. That's where you really fucked up, by the way. You should have run the quad stream on Mogul Mail.
I asked him, you know,
would have got 10K viewers free if it was on Mogul Mail. Everyone knows Mogul Mail, the real true best Ludwig channel. Anyway,
yeah,
sorry.
I absolutely agree.
How much of you, not to go too much harder into this, because we actually are cheating and we're going to bring on one more caller after this, which is Atriot. But how much of it, because I know you tweeted that you were a little dissatisfied with the viewership. You tweeted that Saturday, and obviously the viewership Saturday is just way less than Sunday. So was that also just part of it? Because, you know.
Yeah. I mean,
Saturday.
but I'm saying that with like the context in mind. Like I didn't expect like 60K on like Friday and Saturday by any means. It's like we were just like around, like on Friday and Saturday we were probably around like 10 to like 15K for a big part of the day, and like really peaking at like low 20s. So for like the scale of the tournament and like the quality of matches that we're on, I would say like on Twitch, you know, I think we would have hit 30. Like for sure. Yeah. And like I think like for the amount of like resources and players involved, just like my general internal barometer of like where viewership should be at, I'm like, that feels low. And it I think it is, because we even on like Ludwig's channel for like LACS like have hit like higher numbers. So I think like that's where the marketing part of it comes in too. Whereas like when he does LACS, I think the build up marketing wise is actually a lot more the marketing historically is a lot better for LACS. Like if you look at like the build up that like Ludwig would personally do for those tournaments, whereas like it didn't happen for this tournament, which is like not weird. We honestly just happen to be really busy with a bunch of other projects like around this tournament, so that's why it was like hard to like plan things. Whereas like when we did LACS the last time, it was like that was like the primary thing everybody was working on and focused on.
Okay, right, yeah, you've got the fucking chess boxing thing coming up and everything else, so that makes sense. It sounds like I definitely agree with you. Like you literally YouTube discoverability, which is wild because YouTube has amazing discoverability for fucking, you know, long form evergreen content, and just I can't find streams on there to save my life. Literally, I remember I was like, I went back to my hotel room for a bit. I was like, guess I'll pull up the YouTube stream, and I was like, why isn't there a button? Like, why do I have to type in Ludwig to find the tournament? It's crazy. So TLDR, they just fucking YouTube needs to acquire Truffle and like make automated, like an engineering manager, and let him build out his own team, and then everything will be happy forever. But until they do that, who am I kidding? They literally had gaming.youtube.com a couple years ago that solved this problem. I hate Google. I'm not going to get into it. This problem literally was solved like 5 years ago, by the way. Whatever. It's fine.
Yeah.
Google, keep doing your thing. Ryan, how do you feel about that?
No, I mean, I think that makes complete sense. I think it is an ecosystem situation, and Twitch is what people know, but also, it's just a way better service for live stream. So that does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, for sure. And we gotta keep things moving here. We're quite over, and we want to make sure we get Big A, as they call him, on.
Big A, as they do
whatever
call
he's
him.
got to say. So, Rye, thank you for calling in. Any shout outs you want to do for us on your way out today?
Yeah. Shout out to James, Connor, Steve, all longtime Melee players. Christmas 01, tradition stuff. Really appreciate it. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate the effort you guys are doing to steward this culture. It means a lot.
Thank you.
Appreciate that, right?
Have a good one.
Alrighty. Peace, y'all.
Can I just say that was like the realest shout out we've ever had?
That was pretty cool.
I was just like, shout out to James, shout out to motherfucking Steve, shout out to Connor. You know what I'm saying? Big Christmas things. You know what I'm saying? All right, let's go. I'm out of here. That was so, I fucking love that guy. Hey, Big A, the last caller of the day. What are you doing? What you got for us today, buddy?
Oh, yo, what's good? Thank you for that Big A introduction, PP.
This is who our last guy is.
This is our last guy. Yeah.
This
Well,
is our
I
last
thought it
caller.
was only
Finally, a real question. They've been softballing Aiden, dude. They've been softballing his ass.
Okay,
Yeah,
what
man,
do they need to ask? What's he need?
Why
to
do
be,
you want to go to?
gotta answer
Tell
for?
everybody why you want to go to Wellington. By the way, tell everybody why you want to go to Wellington.
I
How about
wanna
we
see
start
the
with that?
big old hands. I want
You
to
want
see
to
the
see the big old?
Oh.
What is this stupid shit you're DMing me? And
I want to drive to Wellington to see the world's biggest hands. But that's not
Yeah.
related to Melee, Aiden. Okay, the people want to hear with some hard-hitting questions.
No, it's cool.
Yeah, what do you got for us today?
All right.
I stream like once every 2 months, and H-Rock went live while I was live last night. I thought that was pretty rude. You just decimated my viewership.
You were used to bad viewership all weekend, so I was trying to hit you. while you were-
Okay, H-Rock, please. What's your question for us?
Okay,
today?
yeah, dude. PB's got a note to the producer, like, get this fucking guy off, dude. All right, I wanted to ask for real, legitimately. I actually loved today's episode. It was really awesome. I'm a big Radio Melee fan.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I thought Aiden was spin. But my real question is, and this is something I've always thought about, but it's like, this is an idea guy thing, dude. I've never actually pushed it into practice. You sort of were touching around it, Aiden, when you were talking about how viewership gets better when you get past the round one pools, and you're just talking about the good players playing. And I'm like, why doesn't Melee ever just do title card, undercard hype match? Like just Mango Zane best of 9.
This is actually a serious question. This is actually a serious question.
I was not building up to like you have a small dick or something. I'm trying to get to a real question. I've literally like, why don't we do this? Because people would, you could hype it up. You can make a trailer. People care about that shit. You can make it's just so much easier to market. Why do we always do big tournaments? Why do we always have 4 million matches, 2 days of stuff that doesn't matter? I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but again, I am less engaged than you guys are. You guys do care about, I can't even think of the names you were saying because I don't remember them already.
I actually kind of do have an answer here.
Okay,
I'll let Aiden go first though.
Kind of like Octagon,
Yeah,
that was my answer,
which was
so
amazing.
we knew that.
The Octagon was super fucking hype, but I just mean like
IRL, right? IRL, do them at events.
Yeah, not online, and with a little more pre-production to build this. Like, how if fucking Jake Paul's gonna box somebody, I don't give a fuck about Jake Paul. I never watch him, but I hear about everything. They talk about it. They have tons.
It's not true. You model your life after Jake Paul.
Yeah, I do. I mean, he's a poster behind me, but. And they have trash talk. They do interviews with him. Yep. Just the kind of build up. I don't think we ever do too much before a tournament, and then it all relies on the tournament being good.
I feel like there's just no way you don't know the answer to this.
Maybe I do, but I'm blanking. So
I love that Aiden just comes out and just hits you with some fucking,
I'm sure he's got some Zen shit.
I'm supposed to come to you. I'm supposed to come to you.
Call in, and Aiden goes, "This is a great question, and here is 20 minutes of wonderful insight from one of the greatest at the TV." Aiden comes in and he goes, "I can't believe you don't know this. You stupid."
Look at the shit he wants to go to in Wellington. It's fucking dumb. This is what you want.
It's freaking me out.
This is what you want to waste. This is what you want to waste Star
just
trip on
feel
is
like
going to see this
I was
hand at the top of a building
really
in Wellington.
enjoying
This
the
is-
politeness
Hey,
that all the
everyone
guests were
Google-
given when I.
Everyone Google giant hand Wellington. I just looked at
Yeah.
this image on Google. It's
And then
fascinating.
you'll think I'm right. You'll think it's good to see.
I feel like I already saw it. I feel like I
You-
I just feel like
Um,
if Gringy in chat asked this
feel like
question, you'd be
you're
asking
coming.
really
You're
politely.
coming. Yeah, because you're coming to. I'm supposed to. I don't go to Grenji for Marketing Monday. It's like you should know the answer. You know.
Why is it so different in Melee? Tell me. You know Melee. I don't know. What's going
think
on? Have you tried it?
Yeah, I did. I think like maybe not with like the appropriate like marketing resources that could like fully go behind it, but we did this at Saving Mr. Lombardi 1 and 2. There was like cards of matches, and we did it to like I would say more proportional success than like past efforts. In that like we leaned into it as like a part of the event. I think the main one I can think of is we did Ginger versus Fiction.
I was gonna say that was
Yeah.
so fucking sick. I remember it. It was dope. I liked it.
Yeah,
I
and
still
it was
think of
it was
that then.
cool. It was a first of 5, and we retained like quite a bit of viewership after the tournament ended for it. And I think like it was like successful relative to that sort of
Yeah.
effort normally.
Did they have beef at the time or anything? Was there any kind of story going in?
Yeah, they did. They did. There was like
Yeah, I
an
kinda
online
remember this.
beef
This is
with
awesome.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what. Yeah,
And I think that's cool. Like it's definitely good. I think the things holding this back right now is like, one, I don't think there's enough like real beef in the community right now. Like we've talked about like the change in like toxicity and like maturity in the scene, and not that it's like always perfect by any means, but I think like most top players like have a pretty good and like positive working relationship. So like the crossover of like two people talented enough with big enough followings, like actually hating each other and like playing one of these sets to gain enough hype behind it, like doesn't really exist in a way where like I think around like Apex 2014, 2015, you could like still find some of that like beef. Or like in like Toph's not Toph's case, who was it? It was Tafo and Tien. Yeah, like $1,000 was just like unconventional and cool enough at the time to create hype, right? And like a lot of those things that like I think fit into the mold of like interesting enough to create hype behind something like that are also fall victim to the same thing I was talking about earlier, where it was just all so fresh and new at the time. And like none of that shit is like interesting enough like now. It's like one of the Apex 2015 sets, for example, was like Cold Bowl versus West Balls. And if you do that now, it's like, dude, who gives a shit? Like, it's like, genuinely. Like, it's like, I might give a shit as somebody who loves watching Melee and knows, like, the stories
there's
behind
an
these players.
equivalent Cold
and,
Ball
like,
versus West Balls now.
No,
something-
I don't think there is. Like, Apex just announced Bobby versus Zamu. And, like, be honest with
no
yourself.
idea that is.
It's the same. It's the same as it was back then, but with a smaller pool of people who care enough for that to be hype. It's like not something that pulls in like a lot of like new faces. It's not like unique enough. It's just like I don't think that type of like match can be like successful in the same way it was, because the environment around the whole game is different. And I think you could do it with like if Leffen and Mango actually hated each other, I think you could do it with them. And you put a bunch of marketing into like the shit talk and the videos behind it. You could probably market it to a broad enough audience to make it like maybe like sponsorable and therefore profitable. But that's the other component of this that I think hurts it. Our primary ways for selling on Melee right now have a lot to do with viewer minutes and how much time people watch. That's like how you sell sponsors on a Melee broadcast. Melee is not a long form match. Even a first to 5 or even a first to 10 really does not last that long. Like it's like maybe you get like an hour out of that. And once it's over, it's over. But our main way of selling on that event, at least as it currently stands, is proving how much watch time there is in the game or watch time there is in the tournament. So that's why BTS's broadcasts are like so long. And like why everything is stretched out and why every set is streamed is because that watch time number is they want to maximize the watch time number because that brings in sponsors, and it's also part of like how they monetize their broadcast through like through their Twitch deal. So it's like that's like, it's a revenue thing. It's like, I can't, and we don't have the broad like mainstream appeal to do pay-per-view. Like, it's just like, if you put a paywall on even Mango versus Leffen, not enough people are going to buy it for that to like make it viable, which I think is the model that makes like fights like profitable, right? Is like Melee is like this Melee, or is this, unfortunately, and even Smash, like even Ultimate or gaming esports in general, is unfortunately like too culturally niche to like start digging into the audience outside of it and pull people in. You know why like we care about Jake Paul fighting somebody? Is because Jake Paul equal bad, punching cool, I buy. Like, it's like a very basic equation. But how do I tell like fucking Derek from Phi Caps that like Cole Bull versus West Balls is actually worth buying tonight? Like, it's just like, it can't happen.
I would pay to see that. I'd pay for to see you that to Derek from Phi Caps.
Yeah, but you get what I mean. It's like, we just exist within like too niche of a circle to like market it in that way. And so we have to go through the path of like how we do get sponsors, and how, which is like primarily view minutes. And we don't have enough like cards to like put up and make hype enough that like creates the viewer minutes necessary to make a tournament like worth pursuing. And that's why like tournaments, like long-winded tournaments, this applies the same. This is why the fucking Dota major and the CSGO major are so long, by the way. This is why those events are like 2 weeks long. You know, like they have a viewer minute, like they want to hit this many viewer minutes for their sponsors, and running a tournament for 2 weeks nonstop is a great way to get a lot of viewer minutes. It's the same thing with like Dota 2, like TI qualifiers and stuff. It's like,
it is
let's have
literally the
nonstop
same
Dota
thing,
for like a month.
It is by the way, this is literally the Plup model. This is what Plup just does one subathon a month and then turns the stream off, because he is also independently, by the way, come to the same realization.
Yeah, you just need to be on a lot, because you exist in a space that's like difficult to market to the audience that isn't already like attached in there for it. And I think like that's basically why. And we're not going to go see the hand, man. We're not.
I have an analogous.
I have an analogous and somewhat complimentary take that tackles this question from a different direction.
Love that. Because we used to have some of this, actually. We used to have, I don't know if you remember, one of the early Evos, they actually ran at the same venue as the LSI. At that exact venue, there was Mango versus Armada for $1,000. And it was the weekend of, I want to say it was Evo 2014. It was one of those. And if you remember like the early days of Dragon Ball FighterZ too, they would run a lot of like Sonic Fox. There was a period where I remember they were bitching about, they were like, man, we got another fucking Sonic Fox Go Eat Show match. We've had one of these every week for 3 weeks now. And of course we have the Octagon. And what inevitably happens after all of these events is that the top players involved go, that didn't matter nearly as much as tournament. Everyone knows tournament's what really matters at the end of the day.
Yeah, the set also doesn't count for like rankings and stuff. The only
doesn't count for rankings.
Dude, the only show match I think, can you think of anything besides this? I'm genuinely asking. The only show match in fighting games I can think that was actually probably worth it was the fucking Lupe Fiasco one.
I hate that that's true, but that's...
What are you talking about?
I do disagree.
Chillin' Leffen didn't matter for... What are you talking about?
Which match? Which match?
What do you mean, which match? The Apex match.
Chillin' Leffen?
It's a show match.
This is true. I think you're right.
Yeah, you're right. But that had a lot to do with like the media and timing. Like you couldn't.
That's what I'm talking about, though.
Hold on. If they schedule a show match now with the same Twitter beef and drop the same song in 2022 Melee environment, I don't think it becomes nearly as successful. They just it's the same. It's the same thing as like. No, that's
relatively successful. I think it's versus other things. Yeah, I think it's still big.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, if you're talking about like why don't people do this now, and like the iron isn't hot anymore. I don't think you can like strike gold in the same way.
I think there might be a way to do it. I've had some ideas, but I haven't really been operating on them because I've been studying chess and boxing all day.
Bro, I don't think the iron is hot for fucking Tetris, but if someone builds the right story and tells me this is the fucking sickest beef in
Hold on.
Tetris, and
Hold
they're
on,
playing
no, no, no,
1v1
no, no,
this
no.
weekend.
No.
then I'm gonna
Hold on,
tune
hold
in
on.
and watch.
Yeah. If some guy makes a 9-episode documentary about how cool the competitive Tetris community is, and I learn about the chillin' of Tetris, and then he insults the leffen of Tetris, and then one of them makes a diss track. Yeah.
Then I'm gonna tune in.
You know what?
and be
Then you're
fired,
right.
dude.
You know what? Then you're right, Atriox.
So
I
you're-
just don't think it's like over. You're talking like it's fucking over. I think it's like the game's fun to watch. You can get people into it.
But it's a gamble, right? It's like you have to gamble on the circumstances and marketing versus like I could go the safe route and plan something that gets enough viewer minutes and sell sponsors on that, which is like a relatively sure thing. Or I can put a bunch of money, resources, and things into a show match that lasts for an hour and hope it works out. Which one am I going to choose to do?
Are you a pussy?
Now-
Come on.
in the defense of Aatrox's argument, though, Aiden, when you plan an event, you know, you need enough room for a shitload of people. And I feel like there's an argument that you at least get to skip a lot of the
Yeah,
logistical
you get to
steps.
skip a lot of the expensive logistical hard part, and all you have to focus on is making this 1 or 2 or 3 or
Or not-
5
yeah.
matches.
You mean selling like tickets? Is that what you mean?
I mean, like getting a big venue. I mean, like making it so people can open enter, running a huge bracket, running a Friday, Saturday stream. You know, all that just boils down to I have 3 to 5 great matches. How do I make these exciting? And yeah, maybe you can't sell as many viewer minutes. That's 100% true. But
I think if you can get into the room and convince the sponsors that it's valuable, then yes. But it's like that's what needs to be done because we've already agreed that the pay-per-view model won't work for this, right? So it's like you need a way to make it economically viable to throw. Like no shade. It's like Octagon works because like you guys are willing to spend salaried company time on an event that like you don't need to make money off of it. It's like decided that that is where the capital is allocated. And it's like you can just like we lost money this weekend. We lost 150 grand because we like thought it would be cool. Like that's and if you're willing to make those decisions, you can do anything. Like of course we could do like undercards and like big like scheduled fights and stuff like that. I'm just saying like long term, it's like can you do that to like profitable success? And I don't know if you can. I think the only match you can do in Melee right now that you might be able to turn into that is Hacks versus Leffen. And I don't think that'll happen.
Oh boy.
if you could get it though, that'd be
That'd be crazy.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, either way. Oh, I was going to say I appreciate your guys' answer. I actually have to dip, but I really, I've actually sincerely love this episode, and I thank you for your answer to my question.
Thank you.
thank you, Aatrox.
Meet you
We'll
all
talk about
at
it.
the
We'll
hand.
talk about it more in the car
At
on
the
our
hand.
week-long
We'll talk
road
about it
trip.
at the hand. Yeah. All right, bye.
At the hand. I think you
Bye.
should save the conversation until you get directly under the
Yeah,
hand.
right
and
underneath
both of
the
you
hand.
should stare at it the whole
Yeah.
time, not at each other. Upwards.
I'm just
I
gonna
love
look
that.
at the. I'm gonna look at the hand and then look at him and be like, "You were so fucking wrong." Like,
No, you know what? I'm calling it. I think you're gonna look at the hand. I've seen it on the internet now. I think you're gonna
Yeah.
stand there and you're gonna go,
This is worth it.
"This was worth it."
yeah.
God, I hope so. All right, bye, guys.
Peace out, Aatrox.
Later, PP.
See ya.
Likely you specifically.
Thank you. I'll take that. Works for me.
I think a big part of it at the end of the day is I think, you know, Octagon's fucking dope and I love it every time it happens and fucking, you know, we get for what it is, we get fucking good viewership. But then
Yeah,
you know,
Octagon is great. Relative to like in the relative like world of Melee, Octagon performs really well. I think it's a unique event that is like totally cool. I'm so happy that somebody is doing it. But it's like, can you like create a successful business model doing those types of sets and matches over the long run? Not right now, at least.
I think that I mean, you know, like I fully agree with that, and I think from the financial sustainability perspective, 100%. From even the perspective of ignoring the money question, I think if you get into why don't we literally for the Melee community, why don't we do it more often? Does Zane fucking sit here and go, dude, I'm so happy I beat Mango with the Octagon. Does Mango go, oh, I'm so fucking salty I lost the Octagon. Fuck, I really wanted to win the Octagon. No, there just isn't as much. There's never as much post-event investment in that same sense. No one's fucking, because it's just as a community, I think it was ordained in the dawn of Super Smash of the FGC that tournaments are the end all be all, and it's hard to pull people's collective attention both from the player perspective and the spectator perspective somewhat away from that. But I do think that there's something to what we talked about earlier, more creative formats like SCL, which I think was a bridge between the tournament format and let's have more just fucking high profile matches between, and I think SCL was a fucking happy medium between, I think, what Aatrox is asking for and I think what we're providing with double elimination brackets.
Yeah.
And TLDR, I think
definitely.
SCL is the greatest thing ever. And fucking, yeah, like there should just be 1,000 Aidens coming up with brilliant fucking tournament formats all the time, and we just do those at the end. That's my spiel. SCL's fucking dope. God, I fucking
Thank
loved
you.
SCL. Jesus, I
Who primarily came up with that? Primarily came up with that because I think I get a lot of the credit, but it was primarily Hotbed. He came up with most of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, shout out to Hotbed as well. But we already talked about him this episode and his like fucking psychotic behavior with his Captain Falcon.
Yeah.
Absolutely just batshit insane. Yeah. But great guy otherwise, great TO. A lot of bright ideas on that guy's in that guy's head. Anyway. Here we are. We've gotten to the end of the episode. I mean, obviously we went over time, but I think we had a shitload of really interesting things to talk about. And we had a bonus cheat caller, the last boss, the Akuma that shows up after you knock out M. Bison, which was Aatrox. And that was cool to talk to him. And I guess the last thing on the program, Aiden, we do this every week, is we basically ask our guests to ask a question to the wider community. So we basically, people chime in, as you saw, people chime in the YouTube comments of the video. You can ask them whatever the fuck you want. It doesn't have to be about anything in particular. It technically doesn't even have to be about Melee, but you ask them whatever you want. Something that you would like our callers to, our listeners to chime in on.
Yeah, I'm genuinely wondering because I imagine most people who tune into this are people that are interested in or watch and follow Melee specifically. Mm-hmm. If you are a fan of Melee who's here and you watch Melee all the time, what other games do you watch the most, or if any at all? Like what? And not gaming in general, but esports specifically. Like, do you watch like ESL and CS:GO? Do you watch Dota? Do you watch Ultimate? Do you watch any other games? I'm really curious to see what other games Melee fans keep up with, if any.
That's cool. Yeah, I'd be curious to know that as well.
Yeah, I'm really curious. I almost want to. I almost like, usually we do it, just in the form of like, we get the format of like, here are the people who answer, but I almost want to like graph it out. Like once we get a bunch of responses, I want to see what the most common replies are. But thank you so much for.
You got this.
Oh, I wasn't going to say you had to do it. I was going to volunteer to just fucking scroll through it or something. But anyway, that's a sick question. Thank you so much, Aiden. In a time where, the future of esports is uncertain, one man guiding us to the promised land. It's Aiden Calvin.
Do my best.
Fuck yeah.
It's probably left to somebody else. But thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Likewise.
I just love talking about this shit. Because I just sit at home and I think about it a lot. And it's nice to be able to have like people to talk it over and share it with, and like an audience to kind of hear it as well.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
What's it like being on a podcast episode where you don't talk about bodily fluids? Is that weird?
Weird. It feels like a little something is missing.
Yeah. Hey,
I have to get out of it. Never mind.
Okay. Well, look, we're going to save ourselves for on this note, we're going to take us out, but thank you so much, Aiden. Phenomenal answers, phenomenal insight. Thank you so much for your work in the scene. And thank you all out there for watching, listening, everything else. This is Radio Melee, signing out.